everybody. It's Ann, waiting as usual for Mark's entrance.
Yep, there it is.
There it is.
Woo!
Wasn't very flashy today.
I didn't know it was flashy.
Sometimes it is. Ann, Mark, with Meridian Medical Staffing. Wanted to talk today about something that has us both a little worked up still from yesterday. So we had a travel couple, well, a pair, really a team, an RN and LPN, were going through the credentialing process, trying to get credentialed, left a little earlier than we would have liked for their assignment. Background check was taking longer than expected, and they really needed to start. They weren't working. Then we found out that the background check may take longer than anybody thought. Couldn't get any movement on that, and so I made a call to the vendor just to kind of let them know what was going on, see if there was anything they could do to help.
And a vendor, and again, I know most of you guys know this, but a vendor is a company who acts as a liaison between us and the agency, and they make a big fee for that, 6% of the bill rate, by the way. So they post the job, and we have to go through them. And if you guys are wondering where some of your travel dollars are going, 6%, we're talking $4 or $5 an hour going right into their pocket. What frustrated us yesterday was that this vendor did very little to help. Matter of fact, they did nothing to help.
No, instead what she did was proceed to tell me that if they don't start this contract, we will be fined for 80 hours at the bill rate.
Per nurse.
Per nurse.
Which, by the way, it came to close to $10,000. So my first reaction was to laugh and say, no way. That's a used car. I mean, so they felt they were deserving of a used car. $10,000 because some nurses were thinking about not starting and hoping to find something quicker, which I thought was ridiculous. And again, I'm hoping it was just some young gal, because you were talking to a younger gal who had her first big girl job and was kind of flexing her muscles and almost threatening us. But in 20 years, I've never seen a fee.
No, not like that. I mean, some of them have fined. We've been fined for
$500, $800.
$800 when somebody's mother died and she couldn't start.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys should know that, first of all, we're going to never do business with this vendor again. I'm going to actually talk to the CEO and president of their company.
Wait, and you know what I would like to mention too is when we end up paying that fine, we don't pass that along to the nurse. In no way does that ever get passed on. No. We eat that money.
We do. But I'm not paying that fine. There's no way.
Well, but even the smaller $500, $800 ones. I mean, I've seen some agencies put that on the nurse.
No, we don't. But what's funny about this thing also is if we were to have been silly enough to pay this agency, this vendor, $10,000 because a couple of nurses couldn't get a background check done on time, which had nothing to do with their fault, our fault, they would not have given that to the facility. That's just a more greedy money, give it to us because they were inconvenienced somehow. I don't get it. Right. I would love to think they were going to pass that along to the facility, but no way we're going to pass that along to the facility. So anyway, I'm connected with this president on LinkedIn, and I'm going to see if that's in fact is their policy. If it is, we will never do business with that vendor again. And they're not that big, but I certainly hope that that's not the trend where vendors are going to be, starting to try to fine us. But you guys should know that we do get fined from some vendors, and we absolutely take that in consideration when we are submitting our nurses. And trust me, anybody that's ever fined us for something we have such little control over, for a nurse not starting, are our last choice for using. So if we're trying to convince you to take an assignment elsewhere, there's reasons behind it.
Sometimes.
And oftentimes those same agencies that fine us are the same ones that are the most difficult to credential, have the most rules, have the least amount of communication with us, and actually do the least amount to help facilitate a start.
Don't allow us to bill for 15 hours of orientation.
Right. All that fun stuff that they've got in there. There's money going to them. So the thing I want to kind of talk about today is how there are repercussions when you guys, accept an assignment and then don't go. Whether it's our company or other companies, if you're not sure, don't take the assignment, because it does start to follow you around. We have nurses that literally have tried to work for our company that cannot be submitted to certain vendors, and guys, they control whether or not you can get a job. And there are a lot of very good nurses who have been maybe slightly wishy-washy on taking a job, or have had some things come up and they've changed their mind, that can no longer work for those vendors, it's real nowadays. So please choose your assignments wisely. Many of you know this, but unfortunately there's another person with their fingers in this pie, and they're making a ton of money. If you're wondering where some of the travel dollars or why the pay rates are dropping, it's not that the bill rates are dropping, it's that these vendors have doubled. In the last 3 to 4 years, they've gone from 3% of that pie to 6% of that pie. And that's right off the top, which is about a $4 difference to $5 difference in every travel nurse's pocket. And instead of going to the nurse, in our case, 80% goes to you and Uncle Sam, 20% stays with us.
And what's that dollar? That's like $2,500.
Well, their fees are range anywhere from, depending upon the bill rates. Of course, bill rate dominates, so it's anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 over the course of an assignment.
Yeah.
That is that much less that we have to share with you, regardless of what your agency's percentage is. You guys know ours is 20%. Most agencies are 25%, and many of those big agencies are 30%. So that's a big chunk to them, and certainly it's a big chunk out of your pocket. That's where a lot of the dollars are going. The bill rates are not necessarily decreasing, but these vendors, for having a good website, and that's pretty much what they do, and what a racket, you know what I mean? They don't have any risk. We're the ones paying the nurse every week.
They fine us for our risk.
Right. We're out $35,000 before we even get paid in the first invoice.
And then they go and then they build internal recruiting departments so they can recruit off the full bill rate, whereas the rest of us don't.
What I love is that the hospital pays them, they take their money out, then they pay us 4 weeks later. But yet, I mean, it's such a good gig. They have no risk whatsoever. But again, it's just that the industry itself seems to think that agencies make a ton of money, and if you're doing it right, like we are, you make good money on a lot of nurses because you got a bunch of happy nurses working for you. But you should not be making a ton of money on any given nurse. And when a vendor gets involved, that really limits, what's there. They are definitely taking a piece of that pie out, and most of it, whether you're working for our company or even a 30% company, is coming out of your pocket. So
it's really been my experience that vendors are a lot of the reason, the source of the frustration that happens, and recruiters get blamed for it, agencies get blamed for it, nurses get blamed for it, and 99% of the frustration you all feel with credentialing, I guarantee you, is due to the vendor. I always tell new travelers, you're dealing with a bureaucracy called the hospital, which we know is a giant bureaucracy, and then you've got one right in the middle.
Oftentimes don't really know what the hospital truly in fact wants.
Right. So, as when you're credentialing somebody, you're getting documents from the nurse, you're giving it to the vendor's approving it and then sending it to the hospital, and then the hospital comes back and says, no, this isn't right. So that's why you get a lot of the last minute stuff. It's not usually that your recruiter failed to tell you. I mean, I'm sure sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's just you're dealing with two bureaucracies that you have very little control over, and so they create a lot of problems in a lot of different ways.
But financially, again, the whole point today is that I just found it very interesting that this vendor felt that they should be somehow entitled to such an astronomical fee because two nurses may have not been able to wait to start because they need to make a paycheck. And they asked the recruiters, anything we can start faster? We kind of said, I don't know if they're going to be able to wait 2 to 4 weeks. Now, it turns out they're working 1 day later.
Yeah.
By the way, because the nurse found, killed that background, state background agency
somebody
with
there,
kindness.
some sweet clerk.
The vendor did nothing to help at all. Didn't even lift a finger, didn't even communicate to the hospital, didn't try to see if we could. And by the way, this was a background that actually you're allowed to work for 28 days without it. But they felt it was something that was required. Just frustrating all around. But guys, this is what we deal with day in and day out. But I was blown away that this vendor felt that they should be obligated to a $10,000 cash bonus from us because two nurses decided that they might not be able to wait that long, even though everybody was on the up and up about what we had, what we didn't have before they started even interviewing for the assignment. So
I think the trend, just before we wrap it up, I do think the trend is shifting a little bit because there are more and more hospitals that are wanting to work directly with agencies and
we're calling hospitals that are actually have agencies, or I'm sorry, vendors that are working for them, and they're finding that working directly with us seems to get a little bit better fun. You know why? Because we can pay more money to a nurse when there's not a vendor involved. I mean, holy cow, it's not.
a much more seamless process.
it's just the money. I mean, if you got an $80 bill rate and that all is shared at 80% with a nurse and 20% with an agency like ours, or you've got an $80 bill rate where someone's taking 6% of that off and then the rest is divided. I mean, it's just simple math, guys, but that's just the way it is. So if you're a CEO or CFO of a hospital, try using an agency directly that handles directly and see what kind of fulfillment you're going to get. It's going to be higher because guess what? You travel nurses out there are going to be making more money. You'll be happier, and it's amazing what happens when there's a lot of dollars involved and how people will put up with a little bit more. If your hospital isn't ran that well, it's a little bit okay. If you're making crazy money, I can deal with this sort of thing. So we appreciate you guys. Just wanted to kind of get a little taste as to
what it's like,
some of the silliness that we get sometimes that you guys don't always see, and to give it just a little bit of a taste of our world when we're getting pulled from a different directions and how ridiculous yesterday was. So I won't name the name of the vendor, but
he's dying to.
I really am, because they're out of their mind. I mean, if they try to do it with anybody, they won't be in business. They're not that old and they're pretty small. If that's their philosophy, they won't be in business in 2 years, guaranteed. You can't be that greedy. They're pretty greedy, but they can't. That company took a little too much. So try to. All right, thanks guys. That was the late news breaking. This just in. That's
the rant for the day.
My Joe Strummer impression for the day. We'll talk to you
guys.
again.
Better actually. He does it with a British accent.
Well, I'm British.
I know, but no one believes it. Bye.
Bye.